Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Inspiring and Able. I am very pleased to be with the president and CEO of Life Force game, Mr. Ollie Beck Beckram. Did I say that right?
Backstrom.
Oh,
So pretty close. Yeah.
well,
Nice.
thank you for doing this again.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
So, can you tell my listeners what Life Force does?
Sure. SE LifeWorks it's a nonprofit organization that helps people find employment. It's focused on helping people with intellectual disabilities, autistic people, uh, find and keep employment. That's our primary mission. So we've been serving people in the city of Winnipeg since 1987. And like many organizations, we were started by a group of parents. You know, they wanted to make sure their
Mm-hmm.
sons and daughters, to begin with, were had had support to be full citizens in the community.
Wonderful. And what brought you to Life Force specifically?
That's that's a great question. Um, Originally, I was going to University of Winnipeg and with a major in psychology, waiting on tables, like many people do, working through supporting
Yeah.
myself to get through university, and having just a general idea that I'd like to do something that made a difference in people's lives, but I didn't know what that would be. And so when I wrapped up university, there was a 3-month term that came up for a job coach with the organization was then called Sturgeon Creek Enterprises. That's what the SCE stands for. And so I thought, I have to take a leap of faith and try something. And so I took that 3-month term, and that was just about 30 years ago.
So what about the experience really stuck with you, do you think? If I may ask that question.
From when I started the job,
Yes, like it was good for you for 30 years and now you're the president. What do you think stuck with you most about the job then?
that's a great question. You know, there's a lot of reaching out to businesses to, see if there would be an openness to having a conversation about hiring a person, an employee that could be a great fit for their organization who happens to have an intellectual disability or
Right.
happens to be autistic. And you get a few no's in the mix, but when you find that yes from a business, and then that person is hired, and when that business finds out this is a much better fit than I ever thought it would be,
Mm,
and when that new employee, you know, finds that new valued role that they hadn't had before, money in their pocket that they may not have had before, and connections with through work that they may not have had before. All those things that come with work. That that's a real charge. That's what it's all
yeah,
about. Yeah.
success. And here's something now the reason I emailed you about an interview was when we met on that focus group, you were very honest and were like, I'm the white male, and you, it was very funny how you introduced yourself. And what do you think is key when people try to be allies to a community of a minority group? Speaking as an ally yourself.
That's another great question. Um, I think for me, being a good ally is reminding myself that uh, I'm not the person with that lived experience.
Right.
So I can speak, I can try to be as empathic or and as understanding as possible, but I don't live on a day-to-day basis with a disability. I don't live that reality. So I have to bring that humility with that allyship and have ears to hear from people with disabilities about what their day to day is like, and let that be the driver for my allyship, and test my
Wonderful.
own assumptions. I'll never have Just knowing that I'll never have eyes to see or ears to hear what the challenges are for you or any other person with a disability makes me tune into what I my own test my own assumptions all the time. I have to do that.
And what makes you get past when you realize that you possibly made an assumption, like what keeps you for anyone who wants to be an ally but is too scared that they're going to be like shown the privileges every single day, and that's going to be like this onslaught of this is what you're doing wrong. Like, how would you support somebody who wants to move, not only give people with disabilities work as your organization does, thank you by the way, but also how people get past their worries that they're going to say the wrong thing or going to
Mm.
be offensive and just try and be themselves, basically.
Right. Um, that's another great question, because I think part of what part of unpacking part of what you're saying is that people may be reluctant to get into the fray and be an ally because they don't know the updated language, or
Yeah.
they're scared they're going to say something wrong, and language is always changing too. Like I referred to people with intellectual disabilities, and that's person first language. I know a number of people with disabilities would prefer, or disabled people prefer identity first language, right? So you may never nail it with every single person, just and that's okay. And I think just uh, cutting yourself some slack by saying, uh, don't worry. Most people will will greet you with good faith if your intentions are clear, that you're
I can vouch for that. Yes, because when people seem like, oh, I don't want my head bang off, and it's like, no, no, we're actually nice people. Just um, but yeah, that sounds So is is the organization just based in Winnipeg, or is it all over? Um,
Our organization is just based in Winnipeg. Um, we are members of, you know, allies, the kind of allied organizations within Manitoba. So there's the Manitoba Supported Employment Network, and we work really well together. Um, I guess technically we're competitors, but we're all just colleagues and friends doing the same work. And it's
mm,
similar within the Canadian Association for Supported Employment. So we try to connect with other organizations from time to time to hear, hey, what cool things are you doing that we could learn from to move
mm,
the ball forward and help people get better jobs?
wonderful. And what do you think is the biggest, speaking as an ally though, what do you think is the biggest challenge to disability employment, and um, how can we alleviate some of that challenge as allies in any province? Do you think?
That is another great question. And I have, well, the answer that comes to top of mind right now is that I think a lot of organizations, service organizations, that may not necessarily have tried supporting people with employment, maybe they're more traditional day programs or workshops. Um, I think that sometimes I hear that organizations and people are afraid to get into the world of supporting people with inclusive employment because they wish, oh, those businesses, if only they were more accepting of people with disabilities, then we could get into the fray and help with that. And my perspective is, I think the biggest barrier is the fear of organizations in the sector to get into the fray of helping people find employment. I think businesses have come a long way. I think businesses have a long ways to go, but um, I don't know. In the last number of years, it's felt a little bit like the golden age of inclusive employment. We've helped a lot of people find great jobs that
Mm,
and like different kinds of jobs than we've been able to find before, and it just makes sense to support people to live typical full lives. And for most people, a typical full life does include employment. It doesn't have
mm,
to, but that's why one of the reasons we focus on what we do. It's
mm.
part of the
And so,
package.
and so what I hear you saying is it's not so much the businesses, it's the general public being afraid of different forms of employment. I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
Yeah, no, not even so much the general public, but I think like the systems that support people with disabilities, the systems and sometimes the services themselves can get hung up on what they perceive as the big challenge of helping people find employment. And so I think that that's a bigger barrier to more people finding employment than you know reluctance in the business community personally.
So just focusing on the native has been a huge problem. Or
Focusing
what
on,
the I'm s- I'm sorry. Can you elaborate a bit more? What
sure.
y- you're saying that it's more that these business these help organizations are focusing on how far we need to go rather than how far we've come. Is that it?
Yeah, well, I think it's more organizations have found kind of their in many doesn't go across the board, but I think some organizations feel that it is within their comfort zone to provide like what I call traditional day program support. So that means maybe they have a storefront in a strip mall that people with intellectual disabilities come to Monday to Friday during the day, and they'll conduct a variety of activities together. Maybe they're cooking together, maybe they're watching a movie, maybe they're playing a game, maybe they're exercising, maybe they have outings into the community, but it typically doesn't involve employment as a primary focus. But
Right.
so it
Okay.
keeps people busy and it may even give some fun activities, but that isn't typical life for, you know, people who have left school, adults. So my nudge or encouragement would be, you know, pivot your services into something more inclusive, something more person centered, and something that honors the gifts and abilities of the people you support, because there is that fit in the community where they can make a valued contribution.
But and can you, if you were speaking to other employers. What are these value contributions that disability people can make, in your opinion?
Well, I think part of what's really important is making sure there's a good fit. So not every person with a disability is going to be a good fit with any given business, right?
Right.
So that person will, what are their abilities, gifts, what are their interests? Let that be the driver for, you know, what you're looking for employment within the business community or in the community in general. So I'm getting a little lost in my thought here. Um, so it's hard to say, you know, all people with disabilities show up on, early for work. That just isn't the case, right?
No.
Um, all people with disabilities work harder than the typical human being, and that isn't the case either. But overall, you know, uh, there is some overall data that would show that typically staff turnover is reduced when a business hires a person with a disability, especially if we're all working together to make sure that you know it's a good fit. That person has tasks or parts of their job that are a good fit. Their personality is a good fit for the culture of the work, and um, it reflects generally, I think, the employees in that business in general appreciate a business that is diverse. You know, they are employing people that and reflecting the community they serve, and the community they serve includes people with disabilities, people with
Right.
intellectual disabilities, autistic people. So I think that uh, typically the other employees appreciate that business is kind of
Mm-hmm.
honoring the variety of perspectives that a diverse team can bring to that business. And we know that, what is it, 53%, 57% of the general population is either a person with a disability, a family member of a person with a disability, or a friend of a person with a disability. And
Wow.
so, just thinking about the purchasing power of friends and allies and family members of a person with a disability, that's a lot of money that they can throw around. So if they're going to store A that, has just a bunch of white middle-aged men like me, or store B that has a diverse workforce that includes people with disabilities, if it's me, I'm going to go to store B.
Yep.
That they're both offering a service or selling something that I'm going to value, but they're also reflecting the community they serve. And I respect that and want to honor that with my purchasing power. I'm going to bring my money to store B.
Y- Yes, exactly. And you spoke about golden age, which I love. What are the aspects of this golden age that we can focus and capitalize on that you think are most beneficial for not only people with intellectual disabilities but people overall? Like,
Yeah, well, I've thought about why is it the golden age? So the weird thing that happened you know, when the pandemic started and then we got into 2021 and 2022, there were a whole bunch of things that were happening. Um, Businesses were really desperate for good employees. Uh, and I think
mhm,
that made businesses open their minds to be more more open to the idea of hiring people with disabilities. And so I think that tight labor market
mhm,
meant that businesses had to, you know, think about untapped talent that they maybe not had thought of before. And so we found that we were able to um, kind of seize upon that opportunity to help more people find work than we had ever before. We track our employment data, and 2021 and 2022 were really amazing years, partly because the labor market was so tight and businesses were more open-minded. So that that I think that's why, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think that's part of, or a big reason why it was kind of the golden age.
No,
So
really, it's a good thing you pull out COVID. Y- y- Zoom too. So I definitely see how it opened doors, disability wise, because people we literally have to think differently. So why not add all these accommodations? So that that is a wonderful perspective. Um, and what would you say would be your hopes in the coming years from this age for your organization and for disability employment?
um, well, I hope more businesses hire more people. I hope that we, those of us who help people find employment can open our eyes to more possibilities too. Um, part of part of what I think about is something that someone named Dr. Michael Kendrick talked about, and he talked about. I'm saying it in a different way than he said it, but it really sticks with me. How um, we all live our life. We all have gifts. We all live our life, and I know that I have gifts that some of the gifts I've kind of opened and I'm realizing. And so maybe one of my gifts is part of what I'm doing with my work. One of my gifts is I play a little bit of guitar at
Oh,
home.
nice.
But but I also know that I I have other gifts that I haven't unwrapped yet. And I'd like to unwrap more of my gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that we all deal with. But for people with, and I'll focus on people we support, people with intellectual disabilities also have gifts, some gifts that become unwrapped, or some gifts that they share. They discover, other people see those gifts in them, and people help people unveil their gifts to share with the world. But people with intellectual disabilities are more at risk of living their life without all of their gifts being
Mm-hmm.
unveiled or unwrapped.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that is quite a, it's kind of on us who are helping people find employment to work our hardest to help people unwrap as many of their gifts as possible.
Right. I agree.
I don't know if
Um,
I took a tangent there or not.
no,
That's what the question.
whether you did
But
not, it
but
took us
so
down a
I think
beautiful
the goal
road.
is
I enjoyed the scenic route
okay.
for you.
So
Uh,
I think the goal moving forward is let's help people unwrap more of their gifts.
And what has been the biggest, just feeling inspirational story, I guess, what was the biggest transformation you saw in one of the cases you helped? If you can explain that. If not, I completely understand. There may be confidentiality there, but
Well, yeah, that's right. I have to be mindful of that. But there are also stories of people that have given permission to me to share. I can think of one woman we supported. She was part of our school to work transition program called Project Search. So in her last year of high school, instead of going to school, we had a certified teacher and some skills trainers that supported a group of high school students out of school. They were actually fully embedded within a business. So they were fully embedded within Manitoba Hydro together with the government of Manitoba. And so in what would have been their last year of high school, they rotated through 3 internships. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so each day was bookended with some classroom time with the teacher, but the bulk of their day was out in their internships, learning different things. So uh, every each internship, we'd hope we could unwrap another gift. Help that person see that they could do something that they didn't ever thought think they could do, and
Mm-hmm.
discover that thing they never thought they'd like doing. And
Right.
maybe discover that thing they, oh wow, I thought I'd like that, but I really hate that. Let's never do that again. So, anyways, there was a young woman who went through Project Search, and so she had a chance to try different kinds of work through these internships. And part of what we try to do with Project Search is we frame it with our business partners as a chance to develop their own eyes to see where could someone fit within my business or within my organization. And so one of her rotations was in a big distribution center that stores all of the office, like government equipment, office equipment, um, health, Department of Health, home care equipment. There's a mail sorting function. So she worked in this big distribution center, and they would get orders from different departments of within the Manitoba government. I need this many pens. I need this kind of this number of pencils. I need
Right.
different. She'd have to take that form, fulfill the order, find it in the distribution center, wrap it up, ship it off. That's part of what she did there. And she did such a terrific job that they hired her. And so they hired
Wow.
her for a term, and then they renewed her term, and then they hired her permanently because she worked hard, she was committed, uh, she she has great coworkers, but she performed as well and outperformed some of her coworkers. Has been involved in some training, and this job has transformed her life. She wanted to learn how to drive, so she had enough money to buy a car, so she bought a car. She didn't know how to drive it yet, so she bought the car. But she bought the car in good faith and almost she kind of voted on herself, saying, I think I can learn how to drive. And she did. She eventually passed her learners and got her driver's license. So now she drives to and from work too.
Yeah.
And so she's been able to build a really terrific life and a great career.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And we only have 7 minutes left because this has been a wonderful conversation. Um, but what inspires you to keep going with this work? Because for years it's on hold for anyone. And what inspires you to keep going to improve? Especially within this organization.
Um, well, first of all, I feel really lucky that I found SC LifeWorks. I wish I could say, 30 years ago when I got that 3-month term as a job coach, I wish I could say I did thorough research. I checked out all the organizations in Winnipeg and decided this is the best one. I want to apply for this one. It wasn't
Mm,
like that at all. I It was an opening. I applied for it, and when I started the work, I assumed everyone does this. This is just how it happens. And the longer I worked here, the more I realized, no, that actually is not the case. There aren't that many organizations doing it like this. Person-centered, inclusive, focused on employment, believing in the abilities of people. And so that inspires me. It makes me feel lucky to have stayed here. And what inspires me is the the amazing work that the people we serve do. You know, uh,
mm,
proving people wrong, and in some cases, but getting that job, succeeding in that job, building careers out of that job, training new coworkers, taking on different roles that and more valued roles and getting advances in their employment. That inspires me. I get a charge out of that. But it also challenges me. It makes me realize there's always more we can do and better we can do, and so I have to let that humility sit with me. That there's always more we could be doing. So how can we do things even better than what we've been doing?
And or, how can organizations reach out to you or in any province so that they can become partnerships so that you can discover what to do next and
Do you mean other or service providers who may
or
think about
employers
providing,
or just
or employers? Well, any Winnipeg employer, they're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to hear from them. So they can Google SCE LifeWorks, and there's a contact form they can fill out, and I would get that and I'd be happy to circle back to them. Uh, so there's that, or give me a call.
what
Is there still a yellow book or a phone book? I don't know. I guess there's the
online
internet.
they call it
Uh,
Yellow Pages, but it's online, so
yeah,
you can find
one
it.
way. Yeah, they can find me in the Chamber of Commerce directory. However, they want to find me. If they want to talk about hiring someone, I'm happy to talk to them.
Wonderful. And do you have any final message for those who maybe want to reach out to get employment or just anyone? Do you have any final thoughts of encouragement?
For people who are looking for employment,
And or somebody who wants to be an ally, but like I said, it's a bit nervous too.
uh, for being an ally,
Yeah,
well, yeah, I guess don't be afraid of saying the wrong thing. Um, what is driving you to want to be an ally? Probably you are seeing something that you want changed. Uh,
yeah,
you're seeing that things could be better than they are. Maybe you're seeing an injustice, or you're seeing an inequity that you want to be a part of changing, and just ground yourself in that honor that by having the little bit of courage you need, which is a fraction of the courage that a person with a disability needs in terms of the barriers that a person might face on a day-to-day basis. And don't be afraid of stepping in it from time to time or saying the wrong thing. Be open to being corrected. uh, I think that's my word of encouragement. Jump
right,
in.
right. And thank you so much for this. And um, this is for Winnipeg's Life Works, everybody. And feel free to tell your friends, and don't be afraid to take a leap of faith. So thank you very much, Holly, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to have a great conversation. And I hope you have a great day and even better summer.
Definitely enjoy the folk fest. Your organization helps with that. No, the folk fest.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know if you Googled. I have been a volunteer with the Winnipeg Folk Festival for many, many years. This year, I'm actually going to miss it. I have a family reunion
Uh,
uh, out of province, so I'm going to miss it. So
all right. Well,
next year.
have fun wherever you do as well. And we're in the last phase seconds. So,
Okay.
have a have a good day, and thank you so much for this again. It's been absolutely wonderful. God bless.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks so much. Keep up the good work with
Thank you.
the interviews too.
Thank you.
Thanks.